As Bryan Kohberger sits in jail awaiting trial for the brutal murders of 4 University of Idaho students, his defense team is running out of options, but they're not done yet. In May 2025, a Dateline NBC special aired with details that weren't supposed to be public. Evidence under a strict gag order, now broadcast to millions. Kohberger's lawyers are calling it a leak that could wreck the entire case. They're demanding delays, possibly sanctions, and even hinting that key evidence might have to be thrown out. But here's the thing. That Dateline leak is just a beginning. Behind the scenes, Kohberger's defense is throwing everything they can at the wall. They've already failed to suppress the DNA evidence. They've tried, unsuccessfully, to keep his Amazon knife purchases out of court. They're pushing claims of a mysterious alternate suspect. They're even saying Kohberger was just out stargazing the night of the murders. In this episode of Bad Things, we're breaking down what might be Kohberger's last hope. A coordinated, high-stakes legal strategy that includes media leaks, shifting timelines, and bold courtroom maneuvers. Some of it might stick, most of it probably won't. But if anything is going to stop this trial, or shake loose the prosecution's case, it's happening right now. This is the final phase before the trial begins, and the defense is playing for survival. The Dateline leak and its fallout. A recent NBC Dateline TV special aired on May 9, 2025 revealed non-public details of the investigation, and Kohberger's defense is now trying to turn that leak into an advantage. The episode disclosed that Kohberger's cell phone had pinged near the victim's house 23 times in the 4 months before the murders, and that he had allegedly searched online for info about serial killer Ted Bundy and for pornography with unsettling keywords like drugged, sleeping, and passed out. These details were not officially released due to a gag order, and their public exposure prompted the judge to declare the order likely violated, a serious breach in such a high-profile case. Kohberger's attorney, Ann Taylor, pounced on the Dateline leak as grounds to delay the trial. In a May 20th motion, she argued the program contains damning material and non-public information obtained from unnamed investigative sources, all carefully curated to promote a narrative of guilt, potentially jeopardizing Kohberger's right to a fair trial. The defense claims the intense publicity around these leaked tidbits would taint the jury pool and thus wants the trial postponed to let the furore die down. This tactic aligns with a broader strategy. By pushing the trial further out, the defense gains time to challenge evidence and hopes the public's anger will fade with time. As one legal analyst noted, the defense strategy of delay in moving the trial is working. Give her time to overcome this amazingly strong physical evidence and maybe diminish public anger over the horrific crime. The judge, Stephen Hippler, is taking the leak seriously. He's ordered a probe, including a directive that anyone involved in the case, law enforcement, prosecutors, or defense team members, preserve all communications related to the leak. He even signaled he's open to appointing a special prosecutor to investigate who spilled these secrets. Such measures show the court's concern that leaks undermine the rule of law and could make seating an impartial jury even more difficult. Notably, legal experts say the fallout could potentially benefit Kohberger beyond a delay. In an extreme scenario, the judge could impose remedies such as excluding the leaked evidence from trial if it was improperly disseminated. Can you imagine if all that evidence from the Dateline special was excluded? I absolutely think that is in the realm of remedies, one Idaho defense attorney mused. While it's highly unlikely the court will go that far, just floating the idea gives Kohberger's defense a sliver of leverage. At the very least, the Dateline fiasco arms them with fresh arguments that media leaks have compromised the case, bolstering their calls for delay or tighter controls as the trial approaches. In a case that has seemed overwhelmingly stacked against the defendant, this leak controversy is a rare twist that the defense can exploit as a lifeline. Desperate defense tactics beyond the leak. The Dateline leak may be front and center, but it's only one part of Kohberger's last hope strategy. His defense team has been throwing everything at the wall in pre-trial maneuvering, hoping something sticks. Below are the key last-ditch tactics they've attempted or are speculated to use. Delay and venue change. Long before the leak, Kohberger's lawyers fought to move the trial out of the small community of Moscow, Idaho. They succeeded. The trial was relocated to Boise, Ada County, on the argument that an impartial jury would be easier to find there, given the intense local emotions. Coupled with gag orders to tamp down publicity, the venue change was a win for the defense. Now, leveraging the leak to seek further delay is an extension of this tactic. Every month of delay is valuable. It gives the defense more time to prepare and could soften public memory of the crime, ideally making jurors more neutral by the time they're sworn in. Challenging crucial evidence. Kohberger's team has aggressively moved to suppress or exclude key prosecution evidence, largely without success. In a February 2025 hearing, they sought to throw out the DNA evidence linking Kohberger to the crime, arguing the investigative genetic genealogy technique, which used a DNA sample from a knife sheath to find Kohberger via family DNA, violated his rights. Judge Hippler flatly denied this, ruling that police followed the Constitution and the DNA evidence is not tainted and can be admitted at trial. The judge noted the genealogy method was a legitimate tool that pointed investigators to Kohberger, and subsequent testing confirmed a statistical DNA match to him on the knife sheath's snap button. The defense also tried to exclude other evidence obtained from Kohberger's online accounts, Apple, Google, Amazon, and searches of his apartment and parents' home, but those motions were likewise denied. In short, attempts to quash the most damning evidence, like the DNA on the sheath, surveillance videos of his car, and cell phone records, have largely failed. Removing prejudicial items. At pre-trial hearings, Kohberger's lawyers combed through the prosecution's case and asked the judge to toss anything they deemed unfairly prejudicial. For example, they argued to exclude Kohberger's Amazon purchase history, which allegedly shows he bought a Ka-Bar combat knife, sheath, and knife sharpener in March 2022, about 8 months before the murders. Investigators say the killer used a similar Ka-Bar knife and left behind a matching sheath with Kohberger's DNA next to one victim's body, making that purchase history highly incriminating. The defense protested that those Amazon records were out of context and would inflame the jury, but the judge disagreed. He ruled the knife purchase evidence highly relevant and allowed it in, though he noted the defense can argue at trial that someone else could have used Kohberger's Amazon account. Similarly, the defense attempted to bar certain crime scene evidence and testimony. They sought to keep out the 911 call that alerted police to the murders and an early eyewitness description from a surviving roommate who reported seeing a masked man with bushy eyebrows in the house that night. Those details obviously point toward Kohberger, who was often noted for his bushy eyebrows in media coverage, and paint a vivid scene for jurors. While Judge Hippler's detailed rulings on each of these points weren't fully public, the trend has not favored the defense. Most of the prosecution's evidence portfolio remains intact for trial. Indeed, observers note that a number of recent court rulings have been going against Kohberger as the judge methodically set ground rules for August. Banning loaded language. In a small victory, Kohberger's attorneys convinced the judge to ban certain words that could bias the jury. Prosecutors will not be allowed to refer to the accused as a psychopath or sociopath during the trial. The defense argued such labels are highly inflammatory, and Judge Hippler agreed they could be prejudicial. However, the judge rejected other defense requests to sanitize terminology. For instance, he refused to forbid terms like touch DNA or contact DNA, which relate to the forensic evidence, advising attorneys not to underestimate jurors' intelligence. This shows the court will curb overtly prejudicial language, but won't handicap the prosecution from using proper forensic terms or discussing evidence plainly. Alternate suspect theory. Perhaps the boldest Hail Mary is the defense's plan to suggest that someone else committed the murders. In what was described as a last-ditch effort to save him, Kohberger's team filed a sealed document alleging an alternative perpetrator or perpetrators might be responsible. The specifics of this theory remain a mystery to the public. The judge allowed the details to be sealed, indicating they contain sensitive allegations about another possible suspect. However, Judge Hippler has made it clear that mere insinuations aren't enough. He told the defense that by mid-June 2025, he needs to see actual evidence backing up any alternate suspect claim if they want to present that at trial. A special hearing is set for June 18th to determine if the defense's alternative perpetrator evidence is admissible. So far, Hippler hinted that much of what the defense submitted is potentially fairly objectionable hearsay or speculation. In other words, unless Kohberger's lawyers can produce solid proof pointing to someone else, this strategy may never reach the jury. But simply floating an alternate suspect idea could be aimed at sowing doubt, a classic move to bolster reasonable doubt in jurors' minds, if allowed. It's a gamble born of necessity, given the strong evidence tying Kohberger himself to the crime. Alibi and timeline challenges. As part of the effort to counter the prosecution's narrative, the defense has hinted at an alibi for Kohberger on the night of the murders. They claim that he wasn't stalking the victims or lurking at the murder scene, but rather that he was out stargazing alone in the middle of the night. Kohberger's team says they have cell phone data to support this alibi, which they intend to introduce to show his whereabouts were elsewhere, not at the King Road house during the killings. It's unclear how persuasive this will be. Notably, the prosecution contends Kohberger turned his phone off during the critical hours of the crime, which they argue was an attempt to hide his location. The defense may counter that a phone can be off for innocent reasons, or that being out in remote areas to look at stars could lead to gaps in cell coverage. Alongside the alibi claim, the defense is likely to emphasize the lack of an obvious motive. Despite the extensive investigation, prosecutors have not publicly ascribed a motive for why Kohberger, a criminology PhD student who apparently had no personal connection to the victims, would commit such a gruesome act. The defense could leverage this absence of motive to suggest the state's case is purely circumstantial, or that investigators zeroed in on the wrong man. While legally motive isn't required for conviction, in the court of public opinion and in jurors' minds, it can be a potent question. Why would he do this? That the defense will surely remind the jury to ask. The road to trial. Will these tactics succeed? As of now, the clock is ticking down to Kohberger's trial, scheduled to begin in August 2025. The judge has set a roughly 3-month trial timeline, given the huge volume of evidence and witness testimony expected. Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty, underscoring how high the stakes are for the defense to get any advantage they can. Recent pre-trial rulings have mostly favored the state, allowing critical evidence like DNA, surveillance footage of Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra, and records of his past purchases and school assignments to be used against him. Each failed motion to suppress evidence has narrowed Kohberger's options, making the Dateline leak and similar issues all the more pivotal to his team. The upcoming June 18th hearing will be a key moment to watch. If Judge Hippler rules that the defense's alternate suspect theory is too flimsy to present, that avenue effectively closes. Similarly, the fallout from the Dateline leak is still unfolding. If the leak investigation identifies a culprit, especially if it was someone on the prosecution side or law enforcement, the defense might seize on that to argue misconduct. Even absent that, simply the specter of leaked information has become part of the defense narrative. They'll argue Bryan Kohberger can't get a fair trial if jurors have been influenced by unauthorized disclosures and media frenzy. We can expect the defense to continue hammering this point when jury selection starts, possibly requesting extensive juror questioning or even asking for juror sequestration to shield them from ongoing press coverage. Ultimately, all these maneuvers, the delay tactics, the challenges to evidence, the alternate suspect hints, the appeals to fairness and leaks, underscore that Kohberger's defense is in a corner. The physical evidence tying him to the crime, DNA on the knife sheath, phone records, vehicle sightings, etc., is formidable, described by one expert as amazingly strong. If the trial proceeds with that evidence intact, the defense faces an uphill battle, convincing a jury of reasonable doubt. That's why observers call these latest moves Kohberger's last hope. His lawyers are essentially firing every bullet in the chamber, hoping at least one will hit the target. Whether it's a successful motion that knocks out a key piece of evidence, a delay that somehow changes the case's momentum, or a shred of alternative theory that plants uncertainty in jurors' minds. In the end, the success of these strategies will be determined in the courtroom. If the judge grants a postponement or sanctions the prosecution for the leak, it could breathe new life into the defense's case. Conversely, if the trial stays on schedule and the jury hears all the damning evidence as planned, Kohberger's last hope might not be enough to overcome the prosecution's case. All eyes are now on the forthcoming court dates, a final pre-trial showdown in June and the trial in August, to see whether any of these desperate defense gambits can alter the outcome, or if they will simply fall flat in the face of the evidence. One thing is certain. As the trial looms, Bryan Kohberger's fate may hinge on these final dramatic maneuvers by his defense team. The world will soon find out if any of it was enough to create reasonable doubt, or if the prosecution's case will proceed unimpeded to a verdict.